All right, welcome everybody. This is the first episode of the Lost Boys Deep Cuts. These are going to be extra episodes where I bring an artist on here solo to get to know them better one on one as a person. Go a little deeper than we can go on the show. And today we've got James Hamilton. He's been on the show once before. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. This is a new thing for me. Just having one artist kind of vibing back and forth. So, yeah, I'm glad you agreed to do it. That's awesome, dude. Thank you. So, yeah, tell us how you been. A little bit about yourself, whatever. Yeah.
Well, I've been out on the road sharing the word. As you know from the last time I was on, I stay in central Wisconsin, so it's cold as hell here right now. It's hence my hat, you know. But yeah, and I work on the street every day. I run a community outreach center for the addiction community, recovery community is what I should say, for an organization called Project Hope, Wisconsin Hope, and yeah, so I'm out fighting the good fight every day where the rubber meets the road, and a lot of that influences the work that I put out there.
That's
I travel, yeah, I travel around. Here in the wintertime, traveling gets a little bit tough, but once April rolls around, National Poetry Month, I'll be out 14, 15 nights a month, and I'll do
oh
that right
wow.
up through October. Yeah.
That's a lot. Last time you were on the show, you said you were part of like a poets cafe thing.
Yeah.
Ne-
So, yeah.
Neurokin.
New
Neurokin. I
Eurekan.
can't pronounce it.
So it's a
Neurokin. Okay.
combination of New York, and Puerto Rican is what started it. So New
Okay.
Eurekan, yeah, and that's a web show that I do. I used to do it on Monday, but I do it on Thursday night whenever I can. The New Eurekan Poets Cafe is one of the most famous places to perform poetry in the world. Um, Everybody has been there. The Kerouacs and everybody's been there. So I'm pretty honored to get on there and do it. Elemental is a great host, and I read on there with some of the best poets in the world, man. Japan, England, everywhere, and it's
Wow.
pretty humbling. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like it. I've had only one international artist on here. He's actually a regular on the show. Shout out to Ono. Yeah, he lives in Trinidad. He's a Trinidadian school teacher. He
Nice.
also works on a lot of like outreach things with mental health and working on. He has this organization where they use art and writing and whatnot to reach out to the mental health community, and it's a big part of what I do too. I mean, obviously, you know from last time you were on the show, and whatever else is, that's a big part of what I do here is helping the mental health community, and during the regular shows, I always give like a trigger warning for any triggering topics that we might talk about, as well as sharing like a couple resources. I'm sure you've heard of BetterHelp,
Yep.
online therapy. I share some resources like that. They're not sponsored. I'm not making money off of it. They're just some resources that I found that were like, okay, maybe people will find some help here. And I try to give my little 2 cents. I live in kind of a very small community, like maybe 1,500 people in the town, maybe 2,000. I'm not really sure, but it's a small town. And so there's not really much community outreach that I can do around here, not being in a big city, but I do what I can online.
Yep.
So yeah, I definitely appreciate your steps in that direction. That's what I'm all about, is
We're
kind of.
out there saving lives. That's what it's all about. Making communities more resilient and saving lives. And the fact that I'm super gracious that I can get out there and use my art to do that. They say find something you love to do and you'll never work a day in your life. And I've been blessed to be able to do that. So
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. um you can still hear me, right? I'm sorry, I was just
oh
adjusting
yeah,
my mic real
definitely.
quick.
Yeah, it
Okay.
sounds good. Yep.
All right, good. um yeah, man, like I there's this song that I like. It's by an artist named Tom McDonald. You might have heard of him, maybe
I
not.
have.
But yeah, he has a song called Superman, and it's about how we have to kind of be our own saviors. We have to save each other because Superman ain't coming. There is no
Yeah.
Superman. There's nobody who's going to catch the missiles. There's nobody going to save us from, the darkness, and we got to be our own saviors. Um, yeah, so yeah, we really are. We're out here saving lives. We're, you know, warriors, and
Yeah,
that's what,
I call it soldiers of the word. You know, we're out here. I think on the front line of this war on drugs that we've had going on since way back since Jesus the 1930s when they repealed prohibition on alcohol and they needed to something to vilify. And I just want to say, the thing is, the drugs aren't bad. The drugs are just a symptom of the problem. The drugs themselves are not bad. It's when you mix them with me that they become bad, or
right.
us.
Yeah. No,
How it is.
it's people's personal choices.
Yeah,
Nothing is inherently bad or good. It's people's choices that make them that way.
yeah.
Absolutely,
If we can shed a
absolutely,
little bit of life on a little bit of light on that sort of issue, substance use disorder, and all of that, and help people pull themselves out. Words can do that. Words are powerful, man. You talk about Tom McDonald and his music. Dax is another one.
absolutely.
I listen to those guys. They provide inspiration for me, just in my life. And I think about guys like that when I'm up there on stage, sharing the word.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're like you were saying. Kind of, you want to talk about a little of your influences. Like those are definitely some of my influences. I mean, obviously there's older influences, but as far as some of the new people that are out right now speaking the truth and just I mean, helping so many people and saving so many lives with their music. Tom McDonald definitely, and Dax absolutely top of the list. They've done a couple songs together actually.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, amazing artists, and definitely something. See, the thing is with I try to emulate those artists without becoming them. You know what I mean? Because you can't take someone else's thing. They're doing it in both in their own unique ways. They're doing the same thing. They're reaching out to people. They're saving lives with their art, but they're doing it in their unique ways. And I kind of just try to take like a little bit from each person that I listen to, even the artists that I listen to on here. I pick up little bits and pieces of like, oh, I can use that, or like, that's a good concept, or maybe I'll think about that more. Or just a lot of different things, and that's the other thing too. What we're doing with our art is we're not only saving lives, is we're giving inspiration to other artists and helping other artists grow and do the same thing. So it becomes a circle.
So,
Um,
you talk about a circle. I carry this book around with me wherever I go, and I have since I bought it in January. This is Rick Rubin's book, Creative Act, A Way of Being. And he talks about in there how, when we hear something that we like, whether it be, whatever message in music or any type of art form that we use to influence us, it's a form of love for that artist. Taking what they have is like the most sincere form of flattery that's out there. So, when I talk about influences in my art, um, it's a subject that I like to talk about because with poets, it's easy to say, Kerouac or Ginsberg or people like that, and I do get compared sometimes the stream of consciousness type of stuff that I do to Kerouac, but most of my influences aren't poets. I'm not classically trained. Um, and to quote Rubin's book again, sometimes not knowing what rules to break, makes the art a little bit more pure. The child mind, the child heart, and I'm just going to spill it the way I see it and the way that I do it. And if I break rules, fuck it, I don't care because I don't know the rules I'm supposed to be breaking.
yeah, yeah, and actually, one of my favorite writers said the same thing. So there's this um, writer I read, and he's probably my favorite, if not top three. He's Jim Butcher.
Mhm.
And his writing teacher was very, very hard on him in school and kind of told, like, he had the opinion that everything had, that art was, subjective and you could write it any way you want. And his writing teacher said, write it this certain way and come back to me and see how it goes or whatever. And, he wrote in her style and kind of, but, with his own flair or whatever. And she said, this is great. And I'm sure it will sell. And so they had a conversation a few years later, and she told him that when she said that she thought it would sell, she was trying to just, give him confidence, like, boost him up. She thought it was good, but she did not think that his first novel that he ever wrote was ever going to go anywhere, because no one's first thing ever goes anywhere. And then it did. It became a New York Times bestseller. And he said that he thinks it was because he didn't know that your first work, he was so ignorant that he didn't know your first work almost never gets published. So he went and did it. You know what I mean? But if someone had told him, this is your first book, it's probably not going to get published. If she had told him that, then he probably would have had that stuck in his head and been thinking like, oh, this is, they're not going to happen. And then be a self-manifesting prophecy.
Yeah, most definitely. One of my favorite influences. So like I was saying, not being classically trained as a poet or a spoken word artist, some of my influences kind of go around the board. And the voice I hear in my head when I'm actually writing and reading stuff back to me is from Tony Bourdain, and I love that story because, he come up as a cook and there later in life, I think he was 40 something when he wrote that Kitchen Confidential first, and nobody gets published first, but bam, there it was, it changed his life overnight. And I like the way that he not only wrote, but he always maintained after that first book that he was a writer first. Dude got up in the morning and wrote. Whether he was going to be on TV or traveling or whatever, he wrote. And before he died, after he was famous, he had Reddit accounts out there in fake names so that he could write, And I think there's a purity to that. But I love the fact that nobody could write or do Tony Bourdain better than Tony Bourdain. And I think that principle shines true with me or you or any other artist. We all do us better than anyone else can do us,
Absolutely.
That's important. And so I look to him a lot because, I didn't get started till later in life either, as far as getting published or actually trying to do this for a living. And actually probably a little bit older than Tony was when he published his book, I'm 52 now, and I've been doing this full time for about 5 years. 4 published books, and now I'm apparently a spoken word artist, which I didn't plan either. But
it's funny how that happens. Is like I can't tell you how many people that I've talked to, including like I feel this way myself. Is just all of a sudden like, oh, I'm a spoken word artist now. I didn't even know, because that's not what like I set out to write. I grew up listening to, like, I'm not classically trained at all. I'm 22. Let's get that straight. I'm 22. I do know a lot of the classics. I have studied a lot of the classics. But and I've read a lot of stuff that's before my time, and I appreciate a lot of stuff that's before my time. But when I talk about my actual influences, it's like Eminem, you know what I mean? Like, Eminem's something I actually grew up listening to. Rock bands like Shinedown and 3 Days Grace and Three Doors Down and stuff like that my dad listened to, or that that he got me listening to. Like, music, even though I can kind of play a guitar a little bit, but not good enough to do any kind of music. I can't, I'm not musically inclined at all. But it seemed like for a while when I was writing poetry, poetry feels like it's not it, or at least it did feel like it wasn't big enough, and it still has a lot of growing to do, to be anywhere close to the heights of music. There are very famous poets that make quite a bit of money and can live professionally off that, but the majority of poets have a job, have a second job, because poetry is very niche, and nowadays with the internet and everything, it's becoming more and more and more. So I started to develop my stuff into raps, and because that's what I grew up listening to, and I knew that would what would catch people's attention and whatnot. But at some point, like, I started writing these poems that didn't even rhyme, but there was no other word for them but spoken word. It was just me, like, very hard hitting punchlines and just speaking very hard hitting truths. And I looked at a few of my pieces of work one day, and I was just like, I think I'm a spoken word artist now. I think that's like what I want to do, because I honestly, like I said, I don't have the musical talent to really become a rapper, in my opinion. I could train and I could become better with, beats and all that kind of stuff. But, my talent really lies in just the writing side of it. So yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, I'm not classically trained. I just kind of like develop my own style based on what I think people want to hear and what I have listened to. And yeah, I mean, if I were to name one poet, I guess Edgar Allan Poe is my biggest classic influence.
Yeah.
Because
I think for a subject, he's there. So, the thing is not being trained at all as far as as far as poetry went. One of my biggest influences is Miles Davis, the jazz musician. And what I liked about what Miles did, and it's an approach that I take when I write, is he would go in, and at the time people would they'd walk in and they'd hand sheet music out to all of the musicians, and Miles would walk in and he'd just kind of scrawl some shit on a napkin and say, play this, and he'd be like, well, what notes? And he said, I don't care about what notes you know, I want to hear the notes you don't know. I want to hear the shit that falls in between. And as a concept, that is so, I mean, it blows my mind. And when you look back at the number of musicians today that were influenced by that type of just thought process going in from a creative standpoint, is so freeing. And the other thing that I love about him is you finish something, you put it away. You don't go back and revisit it. That's old shit. I'm doing something new. I don't need to play with that anymore. And I love that about him. The last time I was on your podcast, you asked me about, I was a little bit further along in life and stuff. And you said, how do I keep it interesting or stay? And I said, the key is reinvention all the time, was my answer to you. And I've thought about that. I don't know how many months ago I last did your show, but I've thought about it a lot. And I shared that story with a lot of people. And I said, it was fortuitous for you to ask me that. And then my answer at the time was what I believed, but I've had to revisit it so many times because I like reinvent myself every, 5 or 6 pieces I work and then, or finish. And then I move on, and it seems like I'm still evolving and still reinventing myself and still getting better,
Yeah, that's what you have to do as a person and as an artist. I was actually just listening to a podcast a little bit ago before I came on to do my podcast. It was with this artist called Jelly Roll. I wonder if you've heard of him. Have you heard of him?
Yep.
He is an amazing guy, has some amazing stuff to say, not just in his music, but in his interviews as well. And that's one of the things he was talking about is his fans are always like, oh, you've changed. You're not the same you. And every artist gets that. Of course we're not the same me. Did you? Right. And most of those artists like Jelly Roll, he was homeless selling crack. Like, did you want me to stay homeless selling crack? What do you mean? Like, of course I'm not the same me. You have to evolve to become a better person and a better artist. You have to. Absolutely. Evolution is 100% necessary. And so I mean, I've been talking to a couple friends recently, and I made sort of a post on Facebook last night, kind of reaching out for inspiration, help, whatever, because I'm stuck in this weird kind of writer's block right now, where it's not that I can't write anything, it's that I keep writing the same thing, or at least I feel like I keep writing the same thing, and I like you were saying, I feel like I need a reset. So you know what I mean? Some kind of refresh, um, to 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 restart and just kind of, um, evolve.
I,
You
I
know, I
feel
don't.
like I feel like music inspires me a lot in the poetry that I write. And there, so what I do when that happens to me, I mean, just personal experience, I change the type of music I listen to. I will go from jazz for certain things, and then I might go to somebody like a Annie DeFranco or something like that. I'll go all the way back to the late '60s and listen to my favorite album of all time is Sinatra at the Sands with Count Basie's orchestra,
Ooh,
because
ooh.
that motherfucker could get up on stage and he could talk dirty without talking dirty. His phrasing was spot on no matter what, but it was always him, the originality of him, you know. So I move around a lot, and that helps me sometimes change stylistically when I get stuck in a rut like that.
Yeah, I find myself like I know that something that I used to do um when I wrote was, a lot of the day to get myself like just pumped up, I would be listening to hip hop or rap, or like, heavy rock. And then when I was writing, I would put on more classic rock or country, just, something more mellow, maybe like I don't know if you know who Warren Zevon is, but a lot of
Oh
his
yeah.
stuff is very, very poetic and very good to write to. Or some Johnny Cash, or like, even like Bon Jovi or something. Just something poetic, but has like a soft melody that's not like super blah in your ears. That's definitely something I do. And I know that like your music is like a drug. It can change your mood, it can affect your mood. And so a lot of the times your first instinct when you're depressed is to put on depressing music. That's not always the right move.
Mhm.
Same thing when you're feeling kind of in a certain, like, the right move is not always to put on stuff is to switch it up. And something I that people might actually be surprised about me that I listen to is actually Beethoven. I swear
Mhm.
to God, I love Beethoven. There is a reason he is the musical standard to this day. There is a reason, because that man was a fucking genius, and he was not listening to the music because he was deaf. He was quite literally feeling the vibrations. When people talk about, oh, this is a good vibe, like I'm catching good vibes off this or I'm catching bad vibes, that man actually felt the vibes. Like the
I can
real,
I
like,
can tell you, yeah, yeah. Listen, science has proved this today. I watched an experiment, YouTube or somewhere. So you got a tuning fork mounted, right, 440 megahertz, with a ping pong ball on a string touching it. Okay, if you go 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 feet away from that, and you hit another tuning fork that's the same frequency, that ping pong ball will move off of the tuning fork, right? It will. If you have any other frequency than that 440 that one is tuned at, it won't do anything. Frequency, vibration, and frequency can affect the physical world. So, I mean, I get what you're saying about Beethoven being deaf like that, because the proper frequency, if it matches our frequency, I think that's where inspiration comes from, to be honest with you.
and there's a reason that they're used. His symphonies are used in so many movies, like like chase scenes, or heart, or hardcore or heartbreaking love scenes, or just there, because like you listen to them, they don't need they go beyond words. And I'm a person who writes a lot of words, listens to a lot of rap. That rap is the, genre of music that has the most words crammed into it. But there's something so pure and so just mesmerizing about telling that much of a story and having like my emotions go like this the entire time, like, and I'm locked into it, and no words, just sounds, just vibrations.
But it works.
And,
It works the other way too. Look at Shakespeare. You know, the words create the vibration that elicit the emotion. So it can work two ways. You know.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, definitely, definitely those are two. And I mean, Shakespeare, he just straight up made up his own words. He didn't care about any kind of structure or anything. Like we base our story. It's funny because we base a lot of our story structures off of what he did, but
Yeah.
he had no structure. He did have this structure with each story with like the rising and falling actions that artists since then have been able to map out because it was just his style, and we've emulated that and try and, oh, this is the gold standard, blah blah blah. But really, he was just freeballing it, you know. It
Yeah.
was just
Yeah.
his it was just his style. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, there's something to be said for like you using your own creative expression in whatever way you want, but there's also, I think, something to be said for learning certain techniques from great artists and being able to copy and emulate them too. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There's
Most definitely.
it's kind of a double-edged sword too, you know, because like I said before, you don't want to copy them too much. You don't want to, but you want to bring the same kind of passion and enthusiasm and whatnot. And yeah, like I said, I have been stuck in this kind of weird rut where it's like I'm writing and I'm expressing myself, but like I feel like I want to write about a new topic in a new style, and that even if everybody else isn't tired of hearing it yet, I'm tired of hearing it right now, and I just need like a refresh. So yeah, and I'll definitely take that into consideration too. The music is switching up what I listen to, because
Yeah.
it's hard though when you go on your phone and it's just all there. It's like your mind just goes blank. Like, what do I search? What do
Yeah.
I type into the search bar? You know?
I'll
But
tell
yeah,
you, if you want to discover new music, walk up to somebody on the street and ask them to name a song for you. Just some random fucking Joe on the street, and whatever he has, play it, and then create a playlist off of that, and see where that takes you. Sometimes the rabbit hole is the journey through the rabbit hole take you to some places you didn't know. You never know.
yeah, man, yeah. So we've been here for about 25 minutes now. You had a couple pieces you wanted to share with us.
Yeah, I got
What's
so
the
this first one's called Another Man. It's kind of rooted in addiction. I think it'll be pretty evident. So I can roll with that, and then well, you want to talk about it, and then I could do the other one a little bit.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah, absolutely. I'm
all
gonna
right, it's
drop
called,
myself out of the screen here and go get some water. Well,
all
the
right.
water's sitting right there. I just have to grab it. And what's the title of this one so I can pop it up on the
This
screen
one's
for you?
called Another Man.
All right.
I begin again with a briskly paced stroll down the road through trash littered alleyways, a pigeon shit dense park, and along several hundred feet of wrought iron fence that coincidentally resemble tangled bunches of rose thatch. And I emerge from the urban garden unscathed to find geometry, several squares of concrete between randomly created clouds of my condensating breath and the door to my usual room, the one where I get well. I got there a lot quicker than expected, maybe 20 minutes too soon, but I don't know because dope time never feels real. I haunt the empty airspace outside that space there for a moment or some moments waiting, and I look around at the remnants of a day that has died and across the faces of the downtrodden shivering as they meander and slither by like undead creatures of the burgeoning night. They seem lost without direction, missing souls, dead like the day, buried by society's leverage, flesh bags existing or looking for another way, mixed together, migrating to any place in some kind of a macabre parade. Some frowning behind smiled masks like somber clowns, chemically fading and wheezing, eyeballs fixed in a gaze pinned to the salt pellet littered frozen ground. Some appear to be in pain or a measure of perpetual strife, tweaking, their glances nervously darting around without control as their dignity continues leaking out. Others with saddened faces locked in a posture of forlorn, overworked and underpaid and tired, skin windburned and wrinkled with age, weathered, thirsty, and worn. And over them all, the sky releases misty tears, crying on them and me and all of this, originating from clouds none of us can see. Through the near dark and foggy haze, it covers us with frosty doubt. And the pollution and acidic remnants of man and earth's twisted tryst, a cocktail of ice and a periodic table and a petri dish full of tainted piss. And as all of this swings and drips, the people, places, and dirtier than they should be things, the world turns and I stub out my smoke. And another man somewhere else is pumping gas, dirty ass shirt, trucker hat, and oversized sweatpants hanging down halfway on his fatter than it should be ass. He's drunk, chugging milk from a carton, steadying himself on the car door's passenger window glass. And I'm saddened by that thought. And I turn toward my door, the one that stands between me and catharsis. And face to face I see the loneliest face of this post-mortem day, the one I see in the reflection in the glass, the face of yet another unwell man, a contemporary cowboy with no range, the only one I care about looking back at me, the winner at last. Thank you.
God damn, dude. You paint such a vivid picture with your words.
Thank you.
I mean, and there are words that you're using that you don't hear on, and I listen to a lot of poetry. Like, you have a very strong vocabulary. I mean, for not being classically trained, that is beyond the level of classically trained as far as vocabulary and imagery. I mean, that is one of my favorite things about your stuff is very vivid, especially that one. I mean, painting a picture of each individual and their struggles and what they're going through, and just like I can see them. I can see the parking lot. I can see the gas station. Like, I can, you know what I mean? Like, it's so vivid in my mind. You're so good at that, man.
I appreciate that. Appreciate that.
When did you write that, and what inspired it?
So, it's kind of weird because inspiration comes, I think, when it wants to. We just have to be open to receiving it. So it happened in two parts. I'm literally standing out in front of the community center that I manage during the day, and I'm looking around, and it just kind of started coming to me. It starts with 2 or 3 lines, and then I kind of obsess about it for about an hour, and I just spill whatever comes into my head. But it wasn't done, and I was kind of irritated at myself for the afternoon. So I go up to this gas station to buy a couple packs of smokes before I go home, and literally the other man is in the gas station parking lot, gets out of the car, pulls his sweatpants up like this. He's all pissed drunk, and he literally grabs a carton of milk off the floor, the passenger's floor, and starts chugging it, holding on to the fucking door. I swear to God, I'm like, thank you, Lord, because it just, I'm looking for a statement part of that piece, and it's like right there. And I'm probably literally standing there in the parking lot with my jaw hanging open, watching this guy. When I'm thinking to myself, I need to write this down, and I did. I dictated it into my phone and polished it up. But that part of it was 100% real, 100% real. Yeah.
Yeah. You definitely painted that picture very, very clearly. And just, I mean, it also, it kind of reflects not only our like society's problems with drug use, and just how like complacent we've become into just falling into whatever habit it is, whether it's heroin or alcohol or whatever it is. and it kind of honestly that it has kind of a that poem has kind of a bittersweet feeling for me, because it's like it's sad, but it's also like, thank God that I'm not in that place. You know what I mean? Because I've had problems with drug addiction, and I've had issues with substance abuse, and I've had, I still drink occasionally, not as much as I used to, thank God, but it had a bittersweet, like, on one hand it's sad, but on the other hand, like, thank God that I am where I am. That you are where you are watching this instead of doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I
Yeah, I
appreciate
mean,
it, man.
the poet's job is to describe the world as he sees it, or he or she sees it, and in our own way, our paradigm of the world, and normally, we have to add color and things like that to get that description right. That piece about the dude holding on to his car, I mean, to me, it was just like it was right there. It was like ABC
Mhm.
color and book right there. I don't know who the guy was, and if he ever hears it, he'll probably come in here and kick my ass for, or look for a royalty, right? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah,
I want
probably.
I want my royalty for my $5 or my
That's
5 minutes
it.
of drunken milk swilling.
I
I
will
don't
I will
remember.
put this out there. If it relates to anybody who sees this that was in central Wisconsin, come in and I'll buy you a new pair of pants, because them ones did not fit. I could just tell you that it was not fitting. Yeah.
Listen, I mean, he probably doesn't even remember. He
No,
probably
I'm
doesn't.
sure you don't. You know.
That would be something. That would be something I would try very hard to forget
Yeah.
myself.
I can't, because the thing is so I share my work on social media, and then I will talk to people before I go out and do live performances, or I'll get to a venue and they'll be like, "You gonna read Another Man tonight?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, if I gotta." So I kind of gotta go back and think about him very regularly, more
Yeah,
regularly
I
than
have. I have those pieces too, where they're like, when I wrote them, I know that they're some of my best. I know that they're really good. But then when people ask me to do them, or ask if I'm going to do them, or like ask whatever, like, it's like, not it makes me feel two ways. First of all, it makes me feel pressured to now go and write something just as good as that thing, or
Mhm.
better. And I always feel that pressure is like, I just wrote my best shit. How can I top that? Um, but it's also like, I don't want it to get stale. I know it's really good, and if I perform it too many times, it's not going to be as good. Or
Mhm.
I'm not going to. I'm going to start performing it monotone. That's something I do when I get bored of something, and I start reading it monotone. And my pieces, they have flair, they have emotion to them, and if I keep performing them over and over again, they're going to lose that. They're going
Yeah.
to lose their significance.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't.
that kind of brings us back to that point of reinvention. We gotta continually be creating and growing as artists to stay away from that. I have no doubt in my mind. You had mentioned Bon Jovi before. That if you ask John Bon Jovi today how much he likes playing "Living on a Prayer," he might slap you. you know, I don't
Yeah,
know.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm sure, and that's a big thing, is I'm sure that's almost every artist everywhere hates their hits at this point, especially ones like Bon Jovi, AC/DC.
Yeah.
Are Metallica, are they still playing?
They are still playing.
Yeah,
Yep.
they must absolutely hate their hits, dude.
Yep. Yep.
Absolutely hate them.
Yep.
Being they're what? And I mean, some of these bands, I think, are in their 80s or 90s at this point. They've got to be. I
I
don't
mean,
know
Mick
how. I don't know.
Jagger. Mick Jagger's still doing it, and he got to be like 80. I think he's 82. Yeah.
I'm pretty. Yeah, I know Steven Tyler is like, I don't even know. He's an ancient. He's a dinosaur, but he's always kind of looked like a dinosaur.
Yeah. He probably will.
A female dinosaur. He does. I mean, he dude looks like a lady.
Yeah, you gotta love it. You gotta love it.
Yeah.
All right, so I got another piece for you, and this one I can tell you honestly, this is the first time I've read it. I had a conversation at the end of the day yesterday at work, and and then I got in the car, and I kind of have had writer's block for about a week and a half, and all of a sudden it came, and I just turned the recorder on my phone, and I just started literally giving a stream of consciousness out. Did a little bit of editing last night and read it to myself before I fell asleep last night. So I will do the best I can with it.
All right.
And but it is the first time I've read it out loud. But it's a piece I really like. And you were talking before about kind of in a rut where some of your stuff sounds the same. This piece here for me feels like I feel like the last 3 or 4 pieces carried the same cadence and rhythm, and this piece breaks away from that for me. So I feel like I'm kind of free and open again, or I guess for lack of a better term.
Well, I hope that it will inspire me to do the same thing, because that's absolutely how I'm feeling right now. So,
all right,
what's this one called?
This one is called Palisade Park.
Palisade Park. All right.
Palisade Park. I don't want to be famous. Famous is for the comfortable or the somehow weak, or weaker than those of us who live tough. I mean, I'm just out here trying to do basic adult things and share the word, a loose translation of my vision of the world. During the day, I pretend I'm like a Batman, but one who traded in his cape for a vape or a cigarette. Hero by day, and at night I assimilate, a painted chalky face like a Joker or some other devious clown, blood red lips and eyebrows dark and permanently frown. And I smile and wish for the simpler times of my youth. Excuse me, like back in the day when calls were made in a glass and aluminum shower stall like boxy booth and cost a dime. Nothing like now where the devices in our hands are semi-conscious and have their own plan to make us buy something tomorrow or capitalize on our griefs and sorrow and isolation, our social deviations. It listens to stories about the past, like the one I tell about 3 hookers who got so drunk they forgot whether I paid them or not. Well, they actually bought the blow, which I suppose they did if you have to know. Fucking cake eater that I was back then, I didn't really care about making friends. I was all about feeling good quickly or trying to get happy quicker than I should. So now when I tell stories today about hookers and booze and blow and all the shit like that I thought I needed, rehab clinics show up the next day in my phone, and I see them. The posts in my feed, my device thought I might need to be shown. Yeah. Palisade Park ain't what I need, yo, because I've grown. Today, for now, I'll be safe. It's Red Bull and Newports and jerking off alone.
Damn. I like that, man. I like that. And it does have a kind of unique cadence, kind of flow to it. It definitely breaks away from, like, it definitely still feels like you. It still feels like you, but yeah, that's like a interesting style. That it's a stream of consciousness, just kind of like, you know, we're just literally expressing your thoughts verbatim. That's an interesting style, man. And you said you wrote that today, or
yeah, last night, literally in the car on my way home.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
that
20-minute drive, and it just kind of happened.
So what if anything, was there a catalyst for that? Was there something that sparked that?
Yeah. I had a conversation with somebody here at the community center before I left, and we were talking, and I'm doing a live performance here with some other artists on February 3rd, and we were looking at the poster, and the lady said, well, just remember us if you're ever famous. And I was like, okay, thanks, which is like the kiss of death, right? I was just like, so
Right.
I'm walking out the door with my bag, and I'm like, the first line that I wanted to put in there, but I took it out was, bitch, I don't want to be famous. But I took it out because I don't, it just, so I kind of think like the Coco Chanel used to say, get dressed and get ready and then take one piece off and you'll be perfect kind of thing. So I removed that first line of bitch, but that's what did it. I guess I was pissed off. I was like, that's like the kiss of death. That's like telling somebody good luck before they go on for opening night. You're supposed to say break a leg, and
Right.
so, and I guess that anger and fervency kind of built up, and I'm driving, and it's snowy as shit in Wisconsin, and it's gray, and it's nasty, and cold, and I just kind of turned on the thing and just let it go, and that's what came out. Couple of words here and there that I changed last night when I edited it, but for the most part, that's the stream of consciousness.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty cool. I mean, especially like you said, for something just stream of consciousness, just, and especially something that came out of kind of like a angry, bitter place,
Yeah.
to write something so, like, thoughtful and, just, what is the word I'm looking for here? Introspective. Very, very,
Yeah.
it was very introspective and very self-aware. Very self-aware. That's the other thing I like. Go ahead.
I like that you say that because the thing about being self-aware. I mean, it's easy to write sometimes about our poets, our vision of what's out there. But we're talking a lot about influences today and stuff, and I can tell you, Hunter Thompson is a huge influence of mine, and not for some of the reasons most people would think. I love his style, and I've done some article type work like that in his style, and I love it. I do that for myself because I love to read it. But the thing about him was he would interject himself into the story. You look at his book about the Kentucky Derby or about the Hells Angels, he would put himself in there. So what I do, or I find myself doing a lot with him in mind, is I will kind of describe a scene around or stuff, and then I interject myself into it. And I do that mostly because of the work that I've done studying his style of journalism. And I mean, I thank him for that up in heaven up there, because I think about Dr. Thompson a lot when I'm writing pieces like this, or at least setting up to write pieces like this.
Yeah, I mean, and it seemed like that one, honestly, like you said, it didn't have much setup, but it didn't have much setup, but it had a lot of thought. You put a lot of thought into that, and I guess that's something that I'll sit with a piece, and it'll start with a few lines, and then I'll just kind of get obsessed with it, and I'll sit with it for like an hour, and then there'll usually come a point where I'll become stuck, or just feeling like it's not flowing out as well as it was. So I'll set it down, I'll take a break, and I'll come back to it tomorrow or something like that. And that's usually what I do. I started writing this thing last night that was, just kind of like trying to get my thoughts out there, and it's not completed yet. But if you would like, I'd like to share with you it was basically, this is, and mind you, I do a lot of editing. I go back and I rework a lot of lines, and that's always something I'm doing. This is kind of just raw,
Right.
without any of my shenanigans. So this is called The Truth, and this is what I got so far. Truth is, I'm not really built for this. The truth is, I'm chasing something I want more than anything else, but I don't think I really know what that thing really is. The truth is that I want the money and fame and not to be locked in a cage. I don't want to grind for 9 hours a day just to stay safe and maintain, but I also want everything to stay just the same. The truth is, it's getting really hard to pick a new topic. When I feel like I've already written my best, how the fuck can I top? The truth is, I don't really write all that often. The truth is, when I do write, it's always filled with the darkness that I find myself lost in. The truth is, I'll pump out a piece in a week just to make me seem awesome, but the truth is, I'm really not confident, and the truth is, I'm really not competent. The truth is, I can't really host, and there's not many watching. The truth is, the doubt and the shame are always a constant. The truth is, I'm getting tired of hearing me talking. The truth is, the words that I write are always the same every time. The truth is, I'm sick of the schemes, but it's hard not to rhyme. The truth is, I'm sick of having to rhyme to speak out my truth in these lines. The truth is, there's more in my core than metaphors. The truth is, there's more to me than similes. The truth is, I can't tell the truth in 16 to 32 bars. The truth is, telling my truth is getting too hard. The truth is, it eats me alive and it tears me apart. The truth is, the verses I write seem doomed from the start. And that's all I have so far.
But I like it. I like it. I love the repeating. I love the repeating front to the lines. I'll be honest with you. I have tried to do something like that, and I just can't. I can't do it. So I respect that, because I just I don't know. Maybe it's telling the truth. Maybe if I started mine out by like saying I lied, it would go better. I don't know.
I actually feel it's one of my staples, and it helps me ground myself sometimes when I'm struggling to write. Is I'll start the same line off with the same thing every time, and or just revolve it around like a certain idea. I have a piece called "I Feel," much different vibe than that song, but it's the same thing. I feel this, I feel that, and it's actually something I learned in high school and studying poetry in one of my I think it was my sophomore honors English class, because I was in regular English for the freshman year, and then they bumped me up to honors because they realized I was great at English. But so I'm one of the few kids that actually enjoyed school, at least when it pertains to that, because I learned so much. And yeah, that repetition is something I picked up in high school, where it grabs people's attention. It's an automatic hook. It automatically grabs people's attention every time. It always does. It always does.
Yeah, I love that. And I'll be honest with you. I mean, I travel around. I do, a fair amount of paid shows, but I also do a lot of open mics and stuff. And so and it's nice because I get exposed to different styles and the way other people read, and I don't hear a lot of that. So my advice on that would be stick with it, because it's unique and it's cool, and it's see where it goes, because I'm not seeing it out there, and that's saying something, because I see a lot of poets.
Well, oh yeah, man, thank you. And honestly, I do too. And I can agree with you. I've seen one or two artists do it, but not yeah, you're right. That may be that you might be onto something there. I might have hit a niche. But yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, most definitely.
But yeah, thank you for sharing your piece with us and talking with me, man. It's been great.
Yeah,
I want to take
awesome.
much more of your time. Yeah, we've been here about an hour now, so I'll let you get out of here. But thank you very much. I appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here, or say to anyone else?
Green Bay Packers, Jordan Love, San Francisco, watch out, we coming.
All right, y'all. Make sure y'all go check out my man James over here on Facebook at James Hamilton author, and on YouTube at James Hamilton 8243. And he's gonna be touring around Wisconsin, you said?
Yeah, so Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, Illinois, and Iowa this summer.
Hell yeah. Make sure y'all catch him out there. And go Green Bay.
Go Green Bay. Thank you, sir.
Right. Peace out, y'all.
Peace out.
Have a good one.
Yep. See you later.